Hey guys, welcome to another quick edition of 80s Trash Horror. What I'm trying to do, and what many of the members of Into the Abyss is going to try to do over the next couple of weeks, is try to do more small videos just to keep the channel lively. We've unfortunately let it get a little kind of dead around here, so not being too concerned about how many people are watching or view counts or anything like that, but we just don't want this thing that we put so much effort into falling by the wayside. So what I'm doing is I'm offering new quick reviews of 80s trash horror. Although sometimes the movies cross over into the early 90s. But, I've been really taken lately with watching um, these 80s horror movies, I think for a number of reasons. One, as an 80s kid, which is the prime time when I should have been watching this stuff, I was really a sci-fi fan. And also, too, I was raised in a moderately strict Christian home, so horror was, verboten, basically. So in some ways, I'm discovering in my adult years all these great, trashy horror films of the 80s and 90s. Another reason why I really like them, though, is, and again, I'm not, this is just all off the cuff here and unprepared comments and things like that, so I don't want to misspeak or anything like that. But one of the great things about digital filming is it really opens up to lots of people to make their own movies. Of course, I think sometimes the quality of those movies aren't that great because, and this is just off the cuff armchair, it feels like with 80s in the 80s to make a movie you at least had to have professional grade equipment, you at least had to have access to that stuff, and maybe your acting wasn't that great, but you were in the industry still. So it feels like that those movies, even though they're not necessarily that good, they still seem like they're a cut above some of the indie films today. And I've just really developed a great appreciation for these films, kind of in past tense. Again, kind of what I missed out growing up on. So today's two flicks that we're going to talk about is going to be Destroyer and Zombie Nightmare. Now, Destroyer, starring Lyle Alzado, former linebacker for the LA Raiders, and Anthony Perkins, of all people, is about a serial killing rapist on death row who gets electrocuted, but it doesn't kill him. And then years later, they go to film, or a couple years later, they go to film a prison movie there, and he's in the now abandoned prison where he's been hiding this whole time. Not much of a spoiler, because I think you probably guessed that. It's actually not a bad movie, although fellow writer and friend Paul Michael Anderson mentioned on Facebook when I posted about this that this movie was stubbornly dull. I wouldn't call it dull, but based on the picture of this skull-faced Lyle Alzado holding this huge jackhammer, you're expecting a little more bloodshed than what you actually get. So it isn't so much that it's a dull movie; it's actually remarkably restrained in that a lot of the killings happen off screen at the very beginning, and Lyle Alzado's like lurking around there somewhere. But it's just that you're kind of expecting this like splatterfest, and that's not what you get. I will say this. This is one of those movies we just kind of kept going at the end. We're like, oh, he's dead. No, he's not dead. Oh, he's dead. Yeah, he's still not dead. Kind of a good example of that cliche that bad guy's never dead. But that's on Tubi, and it was a fun flick. It was passably fun. Although, like I said, not as maybe splatter filled as the cover would have led us to believe. The next one is an interesting film called Zombie Nightmare, starring a very young Tia Carrere and a very bored looking Adam West. I'm finding that he, after his Batman career, it seems like he was in a lot of horror movies where he just kind of plays a side character that looks like he's really, really bored. But anyway, in Zombie Nightmare, we have this backstory about this young black girl who's almost raped by these two white guys, and a softball coach comes to save her, but then they knife him to death. And then that guy's son grows up to be this lovable jock that everyone likes and everything like that. He's one scene he shows defending a grocery store owner by beating up guys that were going to rob it, establishing to us this guy's a good guy. And then he's out walking, and our car full of typical 90s drunk teenagers uh, hit him and kill him and drive away. One of those teenagers being Tia Greer, and the other one I can't remember his name because I'm doing this all off the head. He's one of the long hair. Good friend Savage Mouse Michelle Mixel posted on Facebook. This guy's also one of the writers and producers of Stranger Things, and like he's like a walking prototype of Billy from season 2. It's great. Um, so the mother goes to this Haitian woman who is that one black girl, all grown up, and she's into voodoo. So she raises the dead do-gooder back to life to bring out bloody revenge on all the teenagers that not only the teenagers that killed her, but spoiler alert, I won't give you this spoiler because this actually turned out to be a decent surprise. To also exact long-awaited revenge on the two guys that tried to rape her and who killed her savior. Um, it actually is really not a bad movie. You know, I mean, it were set up very clearly. These teens are bad, and that the zombie is coming back to kill him is just exacting his revenge. What's interesting is watching this film, watching some other films. I forgot to mention this the other day with The Suckling. Recently, we watched Noir Horror on Shudder about black roles in film. I'm watching it with my 12 AP class. And it's a little hard after watching that series several times to not miss these glaring examples of roles that black characters all seem to play. Because, of course, the black woman, the lone black woman in the whole movie, she knows voodoo. In The Suckling, which I reviewed a couple days ago, the lone black character, she's the pimpy bodyguard of the brothel. So it's hard not to ignore, or it's hard to ignore these racial roles. You know, once you kind of had your eyes opened to that. But anyway, I'm currently watching two great movies right now, which I'll report on to you in a little bit. The Zero Boys and The Gate, starring Stephen Dorff of all people. So anyway, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving yesterday, and check both of those movies out on Tubi. Zombie Nightmare and Destroyer. I paused there for a minute because I sort of forgot the title. Anyway, enjoy.